believing in the Seattle Mariners. Now, am I saying you shouldn't or I shouldn't? No, but it has been a confusing ride. It's been a really up and down roller coaster all year, a bunch of 500 baseball, a lot of times where this team wins 2 games in a row, as they currently stand at 52 and 50, and then find a way to lose 2 after that to go back to 52 and 52 and be a 500 baseball team. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it's been happening a lot. And on top of that, you've had a superstar like Julio Rodriguez not playing to his standards. Now, the first thought is maybe why did I call him a superstar? Well, because last year he looked like he was about to be a superstar status type of guy. But unfortunately, maybe that label happened a little too early and we had way too high of expectations. We know he's a star. We know he's a young, great talent in this league, but we see this happen a lot. This year specifically, you see a guy like Elly De La Cruz have amazing highlights and everyone's loving him for the Reds. But then he goes through a little slump in the year because he's a young guy. These young guys aren't supposed to be able to just sustain greatness from day one in the MLB. And that's what happened with Julio. But we're starting to feel somewhat of a vibe change. This video has a little bit to do with both Julio Rodriguez and the Seattle Mariners, but specifically Julio Rodriguez, because if you go through my channel, you'll see a few days ago I had a video talking about how the Mariners are about to get hot. It feels like things are turning around. And just a day or two after that, they blew a game against the Twins where Colton Wong hits a home run to take a lead in the 9th inning, and somehow we blow it and end up losing in extras. But since that day, we also won 2 in a row. So the Mariners always find a way to be up and down and up and down. But one of the worst parts of this season, in all honesty, mentally, emotionally, results-wise, is that Julio Rodriguez has not been playing to the standard that we thought he'd be playing. Now, while I did say the Mariners are not the main focus of this video, I do want to point out the fact that they are in a better place than they were, let's say, at the end of June. At the end of June, they were 38 and 42. And their FanGraphs playoff chances sat at 10.3%. Now, as of yesterday, or as of today, even July 27th, they're at 52 and 50, and they went from a 10.3% chance to a 16.1% chance. Now, I'm not saying you should be doing backflips over the fact that the Mariners increased their playoff chances by 6%, but I will say that's a 4-game swing, 4, 5, 6-game swing, let's say. We went from being 10 games back of the division even, and we're, 4 games behind 500 to being 2 games above 500, 7 games back, and like I said, a 16% chance over a 10% chance at making the playoffs. And one of the biggest reasons for it has been just this team's ability to have guys starting to step up. And we've had a lot happening since the Kelenic kick, and I called that in my last videos. Maybe the Kelenic kick is what changes the season for the Seattle Mariners. So far, it didn't happen, but now it looks like it might have helped because we have a guy like Dylan Moore who has had a multi-homer game now with different base hits, and he had a homer 2 nights ago on July 22nd, or it was 3 nights ago, whatever it was, 3 games ago. I just feel like since July 22nd, despite still our up and downness, we did take like series wins against Toronto and series win against Minnesota. And, I remember I'm looking at a tweet of mine from July 22nd, just talking about this feels like we're getting hot despite not winning after this. The game before, in 1 inning against a great pitcher for the Blue Jays, we had a Cal Raleigh home run, we had a Dylan Moore home run, a Julio Rodriguez home run, and it was his first in 4 weeks. And this is the moment now where I'm transitioning to Julio. It was his first in 4 weeks on July 22nd. It was 21st or 22nd. His first home run in 4 weeks. And since then, he has been playing some great baseball. At the time of his home run yesterday, at the last game of the Minnesota Twins series, he had hit 3 home runs in his last 7 at-bats. And then he came up and hit another home run in the series finale. 4 home runs in essentially 5 days. And that is a moment where you start to feel like, hey, is Julio Rodriguez finally taking that jump? And we're going to go from a tweet from Blake Meyer talking about his batted ball events. And for those that don't know what it is, BBE. A batted ball event represents any batted ball that produces a result. This includes outs, hits, errors. Any fair ball is a batted ball event. So, 2 are foul balls that result in an out or an error. So, when we look at Julio Rodriguez's last 8 games as of yesterday, he had 21 batted ball events. 12 of them, 12 of the 21 were at 100 plus miles per hour, and 4 of them were between 94 and 99.8 miles per hour. And as Blake says in the tweet, J-Rod is making absurd contact. The power floodgates are opening, and we're starting to see it, and it's extremely exciting. And that's what makes me want to also go through some of his splits. Now, a couple things to notice. The last 7 games, which is important, he's batting 300, of course. He has 4 home runs, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, 2 walks, playing great baseball, a slugging percentage at .767. And let's just go over his last 30 games. Now, this is when you're starting to see him come back to what he was last year. He has not been able to really crack the 250 mark until recently in this year, but in the last 30 games, he's batting .272. He has 5 home runs, and 4 of them have come this week, 16 RBIs, 8 stolen bases, 13 walks. He is starting to produce more hits. And the big difference is really just coming in this month of July. In June, Julio Rodriguez batted .220 and was extremely struggling. I mean, didn't even look like himself, to be honest. And then in the month of July, which is almost over here, but he's batting .295. He's essentially been a 300 hitter in the month of July, and he has a couple more games at the end of the month here in Arizona. And if he is able to get a couple base hits, produce a home run or 2, we're going to be looking at a month of July where Julio Rodriguez might have hit 5, 6, 7 home runs while batting 300, 302 in the month of July. And that's the guy that you paid for this potential, 15, 17-year contract to be with the Seattle Mariners. And this is the guy that I've been waiting to see. And so it's really exciting. He just needs to pick up, his away game stats. He's been much better at home. Obviously, Seattle's not a, home run hitting ballpark where he has 8 home runs on the year compared to 9 on the road. But there's a pretty big difference here in his splits where he's batting .263 at home with a .766 OPS, .328 on base percentage compared to .236 on the road, .300 on base percentage, a .715 OPS. So he does obviously have a big difference. And, he's starting to talk about it, though, that he is feeling what's happening. On MLB.com in the latest article, he said he's just kind of staying committed to my approach and being ready to hit, even if I'm in an 0-2 count, at the same time being aggressive enough to where I'm going to recognize my pitch, get out in front of it, and drive it when it's in the zone. He says all those things are starting to work pretty well, which is good to hear. And he says you've got time to do all that, to make the right adjustments, to take the pitches that you don't want to swing at. So I feel like everything is on the timing. If you want to hit the ball out front, you got to be ready for it. If you want to recognize something earlier, you got to be ready for it too. He is simply just talking about the adjustments he's made, what he's recognizing, and how he's been able to change his game a little bit to be able to now produce better at this point in the season. And as long as he starts to play good, that's all that matters for the Mariners, because it will slowly help us creep up into that. I'm not talking about the division yet. We're 7 games out. But slowly creep up into that, only a game or 2 out of the wild card, with a big series coming against a team like the Astros or a team like whoever, the Rangers, if we're only 4 games out of the division. So we are creeping up. This weekend in Arizona is big for both teams.